Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Heartbroken Naruto built ultimate harem with Kurenai Anko and Yugao Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Iruka was coughing up blood now. He had been pierced with a couple of kunai and had a Fuma shuriken lodged in his back. Only one thought present in his foggy but conscious mind. I need to get Naruto someplace safe. Blood loss is detrimental. At this extent, I won't be able to stay awake for much longer. Naruto was shocked. He had just found out about his burden. The tenant that resided within him, a demon fox, a beast. Supposedly a monster inside him. Inside a mere human such as him. He now knew why people always hurt him, whether it was physical torment or mental, and why they whispered bad things about him and spat at him everywhere he went. The blonde knew the concept of self-pity and did feel like loathing, but from time to time. It seemed like that infrequent depression was beginning to change. His boisterous attitude and joviality were taking a dark turn all of a sudden, and that was when he wasn't even thinking about it. That did not happen to him ever. Sadly, and regretfully, he had bigger things to worry about at the moment. Iruka-sensei. Just as Iruka was about to collapse, Naruto caught him and leaned him against the tree. Iruka had pulled the Fuma shuriken out from his back and was bleeding profusely from there. He was bleeding from various parts as he took a lot of shuriken and kunai, but the pressure gauzes he applied were working to some extent. Thankfully, they didn't hit any major organ, but the blood loss was getting to him now. The Fuma shuriken had hit one of the arteries in the lower back, which if left untreated could force him to bleed out. He needed treatment fast. He was beginning to lose consciousness, but he was able to speak to the blonde before he did for the worst. Naruto, there's no way you can beat Mizuki. He coughed up some blood before he continued, go and take the scroll to Sandaime-sama and get help. I'll try my best to hold him off. Please. Go. He pleaded desperately to his blonde student. Confusion and some amount of were visible on the blonde's face, but he couldn't let his sensei down now, could he? He still had to prove it to him. Iruka-sensei, there's no way you can fight Mizuki-tem this way. I won't back down. I'll kick his silver-haired. Believe it. Iruka smiled at the routine courageous attitude of the blonde, and he knew he was doing it out of not worrying him. He smiled, but with a rather despondent sentiment this time. That was the last thing he did before unconsciousness took over. The blonde could only oversee as he did so. Wah, Iruka-sensei. He's not going to be able to save you, you demon. Mizuki appeared on the tree across from them. You bastard. Maniacal laughter was his response. Lord Orochimaru will reward me. Oh yes, he will. For taking down the demon and getting the scroll both. He thrust his feet with chakra from the branch he was standing on, with his kunai in hand, held upwards, pertaining his attempt to thrust and slice the blonde with the blade upon reaching him. Naruto was caught by surprise and froze all of a sudden. Not being able to move. He very obviously could see that the silvered-haired Tem was about to slash him with his kunai, but he just couldn't move. Whether it was fear of death or was it that he welcomed it? Would that be so bad? That self-pity in the back of his mind edging over his rationality at the time. And he was familiar with these dark thoughts before, wasn't he? The blonde closed his eyes, having accepted his fate. Just as he was about to attack them. Rasengan. Mizuki screamed and was instantly blown away by the spiraling blue ball of chakra. The purest form he ever saw of the substance. He went through 2 trees before slamming into a third one, snapping it in 2 before his body came to a halt. His whole stomach was vaporized, and even the wounds felt like they were cauterized by the intensity and varying heat capacity of the chakra ball. Wind-natured, was it? Mizuki could only gawk at his executioner before he fell face first with a see-through hole in his stomach, on the ground, dead. The executioner stood at about 6 feet 1. Blood red, shoulder-length hair, with a tempestuous feel to it. He was wearing Anbu-styled black pants which were ripped at several spots with small cuts visible, with black blood-stained boots. He was wearing a black jacket with orange stripes running shoulder to forearm, with a gray undershirt in which bloody gashes were visible. The Uzumaki spiral stood proudly on his back. The only thing seemingly untainted out of his constrained appearance. He was wearing a carmine red cape with black blazing flames at the bottom. Some specific kanji at the back of it but obscured due to the cape being in tatters. Only the kanji for 7th was decipherable. His arms were also a bloody mess. A dislocated shoulder but somehow kept together, whether figuratively or literally. He was wearing a black and red fox Anbu mask which was shredded but enough to hide his distinct facial marks. Only his experienced but tired azure eyes shone in the darkness. He came close to Naruto and his eyes softened at the frightened child. "Are you okay?" he asked in a soft yet subdued tone. Hi. The boy replied warily but not as warily as he would like himself to be. "Good." The strange man replied. "Guess it worked, huh?" Then fell to his knees and collapsed. The Hokage was watching the scene and decided to intervene. He arrived as soon as the masked man arrived but froze when he saw the Rasengan being formed. Only Jiraiya and Kakashi know how to use it. And the latter being somewhat of an amateur at it. He decided to wait and let the events play out. He was ready to intervene at a second's notice if something did happen. Something told the Sandaime that this person did not have any bad intentions. He just had a feeling but it did not mean that he trusted him, mind you. He was still on high alert with his Anbu in tow. He was glad when he saw that his intuition was correct in assuming the man had no ill intent towards the blonde. But on the other hand, he did not miss the blonde's sign of resignation when the traitor attacked him, which made his heartache worse than it had in many years. "Hokage Gigi. Naruto-kun, are you alright?" he asked the blonde concernedly and signaled his Anbu to get the foreigner medical attention. "Hi, Gigi. The Oji-san saved me." He used this really flashy kind of ball which sent Mizuki Tem flying like whoosh. The blonde was exaggerating and making gestures that would make him look like a clown in front of everyone, but the Hokage who was used to the blonde just chuckled amusedly. One of the Anbu, specifically a cat-masked one, giggled quietly at the side. "Still the same cute Gaki," she mused. The Anbu left to get the foreigner medical attention. The Hokage turned to the blonde with a serious look on his face. "Naruto-kun, now that I know that you're okay, why did you take the scroll of ceilings?" The Hokage asked with a grim expression. The merry expression the blonde held was changed into a harrowing one now that he was starting to remember things he was desperately trying to forget or wasn't thinking on. "Mizuki-sensei tricked me and said to get the scroll from your office. He told me that if I got the scroll, that means I'll pass. I'm so stupid. I didn't understand the bastard was tricking me." Tears were falling from the boy's eyes. The Hokage was worried when he saw through his crystal ball what Mizuki said to him about his secret. That was when he left to take care of the threat himself. The boy was tough, the Hokage always acknowledged that. But when he saw the expression the boy held right now, the pain was quite visible and all of a sudden, the old man felt years of guilt creeping up on his spine. He started contemplating in a very regretful state. Contemplating every decision he made regarding the boy and his past. Minato and Kushina would be ashamed of me. The boy is in so much pain right now and it's all my fault. I should have tried harder. I should have fought harder. He knew why the boy was in visible pain. It wasn't a thing such as trivial as being tricked by someone. That was a daily occurrence for the poor boy. He just found out the source of his pain, his suffering. The boy had many emotions bottled up inside of him. Most along the line of hatred and scorn for the bastard villagers. Why did they have to hate him for something which he could not control? There were elements of insecurity too. Was he really a demon then? Left for the villagers to direct their hatred on. The Hokage knelt and put his hand on the boy's head. "Naruto-kun, I'm very sorry I kept this a secret from you. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? His response was a slow nod. But please, he paused as he looked into the boy's eyes and saw nothing but gloominess and sadness. It threw him off a little as his guilt and failure as a caretaker came back full force. He paused before he continued, "Know that it was for your very own protection. Don't ever think for a second that you are the demon. You are the jailer and he is the prisoner. Your parents wanted you to be treated as a hero, but things did not turn out the way they were supposed to. The way I had intended to. There are many things that I cannot say until you're old enough, but I'm truly sorry, Naruto-kun. Can you find it in your heart to forgive an old fool like me?" The Hokage was desperate for forgiveness, but even he knew that some things are not easy to forget, especially with the amount of abuse the boy has suffered. He may not be conscious of his feelings right now, whether it be because of his age or naivety. But even a blind man could tell that the boy is bound to change some way after learning such truth about himself. The boy was quiet for a moment until he spoke. "I don't know, Gigi. I need some time to get over it and think about it and become awesome again, you know." The boy smiled, but it was clearly forced. The Hokage saw through it and his heart shattered. "Of course, Naruto-kun. Take as much time as you need. You can visit me when you're ready and then we can talk." The blonde gave a small nod at that, but his face was undecipherable at the moment, which worried the Hokage. They remained silent for a moment until Naruto broke it. "What will happen to the Oji-san who saved me? He'll be okay, right?" "I cannot say anything about that, Naruto-kun." Naruto frowned but did not say anything. Both made their way to the hospital. Naruto went to Iruka, who was awake now and was awarded a forehead protector. But did not celebrate. Iruka was concerned for him, but Naruto waved him off, saying it was nothing. The Hokage made his way over to the medical facility where the supposed stranger was being treated after the occurrence. A couple of Kunoichi and Irio Nin were giggling outside the room. Upon seeing the Hokage, they immediately straightened. The Hokage sighed and went inside. The man was lying on the bed with half his body covered by the bedspread and the other half visible with some noticeable scars and bandages. But there was a person who was tracing her hand on the man's arm. That person was none other than Neko, the cat-masked Anbu. The Hokage cleared his throat. Upon seeing the Hokage, she jumped and straightened. Hokage-sama. She was blushing madly and sweating profusely, under her mask, of course. The Hokage sweat dropped. "Why is it always the young ones who get lucky? Get the medic, Neko-san." The Anbu bowed and left, embarrassed at being caught at such an obscene act. A few moments later, the medic arrived. "Hokage-sama." He bowed. "What's the condition of our friend here?" The medic sighed. "Not great, Hokage-sama. To be honest, it's kind of amazing he's alive." The medic pushed the rims of his glasses. "He has a punctured lung, nerve damage in one arm, multiple concussions, a cracked shoulder and 2 cracked ribs." He took a rather large breath before he sighed with some amount of disbelief. "A ruptured spine disc at that. His whole body has multiple gashes. But his healing prowess is amazing. His chakra reserves are out of this world. He's drained right now. His condition speaks for itself. But he's probably higher than you in terms of chakra, Hokage-sama." That seemed to gain the attention of the Sandaime. That fact shouldn't be known to us, but due to the extent of his exhaustion, the chakra obstructing seals he had in place are not functioning right now as his depleted reserves are visible. Credit should be given to the sealmaker though. Fail-safes were in place, but they were formidably doable for us. Concluding, his wounds are almost covered along with the scars he already has. By the rate he's going at, he should be okay by morning, which is not normal, as you know. The Hokage was very curious now. He looks like he fought a whole battalion by himself. Plus, that red hair. Only one person in the whole village had that hair. And she was an Uzumaki. Those chakra reserves and that healing prowess, although at a much substantial rate. Chakra obstructing seals. Haven't seen those for a while now. The vitality. He's an Uzumaki, that much is confirmed. But his face, it reminds me so much of Minato. But also, of Kei Kushina. He had a gut feeling what could be the case even if it seemed like something someone completely demented would say. The Hokage turned to his medic, perform a DNA test and compare it with the village database. It's for my eyes only. No one else. Not even you are allowed to see the results. Go do it. Now. The medic bowed and left. He pulsed his chakra and an Anbu arrived in front of him from his concealed designation in the room. Your orders, Hokage-sama. Get Yamanaka Inoichi right now. I won't take no for answer. Tell him it's an emergency. The Anbu shunshined out of the room to carry his orders. As soon as the Anbu left, the foreigner started stirring up and opened his azure eyes to lock eyes with the Hokage. He smiled and said, "It's been a while, old man." The Hokage was both shocked and amused. Shocked because the color of those eyes was profoundly familiar. And amused at being called with such a brusque appellation. Only 2 people in the whole village called him that. Do you know who I am? He asked neutrally. Hi. The Sandaime Hokage. Sarutobi Hiruzen, also known as the Kami no Shinobi. Student of the Nadaime Hokage. Led Konoha through the 2nd and 3rd Shinobi Wars. He stated rather calmly for someone who was a foreigner in a shinobi village. While I'm flattered that you've heard of me, mind telling me who you are? And what business do you have with Konoha? No need to get hostile against me. Old man. He waved his hands above his head feigning innocence. You do know that I'm the Hokage, right? He smiled rather mischievously. I do, yes. The Hokage raised an eyebrow as he thought, yet he still called him old man. Either he was completely stupid or he was just insanely bold. I'll tell you everything about myself and why I'm here. But before I do that, I want you to place a silencing seal over the room and take a seat because you're going to need it after I'm done with what I have to say. There goes that feeling of trust again. The Hokage complied and sat on the chair next to the bed. He applied the seal to the wall next to him, which allowed a series of Fuin characters to send from his hand to various parts of the room and glow briefly, deeming the room to be secure. Okay. You have my utmost attention. The foreigner took a deep breath and said, when you see my face. Who does it remind you of? The Hokage remained silent. The foreigner allowed a small smile to show on his face. I'm sure you're familiar with space-time ninjutsu. Your sensei, the 2nd Hokage Senju Tobirama, invented a technique called the Haraishin, which the 4th Hokage perfected and made as his signature jutsu. Let's just say there's a variant of said space-time ninjutsu which I made in collaboration with a certain someone. The Hokage was now processing everything that the foreigner told him. His sensei was always talking about the capabilities of his Haraishin and how it could be taken to the next level. Such that time travel could be made possible if made with a certain Fuin signature of the user, in which the arrays were made cross-dimensional. That the user could travel to the tag irrespective of the past or future. The tags made in a way that they could be rendered into the surface so they don't decay over time. That much Tobirama knew. But he could never go beyond that. His student Kaharu always called him Gaga for that. And besides, there were other variables to consider. Both spiritual and mundane ones. One does not travel to one world from another without paying a price after all. As for the jutsu itself, he never lived long enough to finish it. Minato never worked on this aspect of the jutsu. He certainly had the potential for it. The Hokage had a passive look on his face. He sighed and took a drag of his pipe. This is quite difficult to comprehend. Say I was to believe you, what business do you have in Konoha? And I mean our Konoha. The foreigner chuckled. Figured it out, huh? Let's just say, a lifetime worth of wrongs needed to be rectified. He paused and then said, I have a lot to tell you, Gigi. But before I do, let's wait for the tests you had done on me. I need at least one ratification so I don't sound like a complete lunatic, don't I think? The Hokage merely rolled his eyes at that. Of course you'd know. Fair enough. He got up from the chair he was sitting in and went towards the window with his arms crossed behind his back. He took another drag of his trusty old weary pipe. That vocal tick. The Rasengan. Uzumaki vitality. Azure eyes. The only differences are the slightly altered whisker marks and the hair. Either he's a proficient masquerader or I'm bound to be in for a long night. Kurenai was standing on the rooftop taking some much-needed fresh air. She had been stuck in that room for so long that hyperventilation and claustrophobia were impending upon her like a dark cloud. It had been a couple of days since she had been admitted to Konoha General due to some much-needed respite ever since that mission occurred. It did a number on her. She needed to remain in the hospital for a few days even though it was against her will, but it was standard protocol for a shinobi. At least they let me change into something comfortable. I felt like someone was watching my all the time with that stupid hospital gown. Which was all speculation, of course. Many did indeed hit on her, but she turned them all down rather rudely, which earned her her repute. She didn't mean it that way, and she wasn't a prude by any means. It was just that she hadn't won anyone she was interested in. Well, she did once, but he was gone now and wasn't planning to come back anytime soon. Her outfit at the moment comprised of a loose-fitting black shirt which did little to no effort in hiding her impressive assets. Dark blue shorts showing her slender and slim legs which hugged her tightly at her rear. A bit more than she would like, but she had Anko deliver her clothes in the hospital and was deeply regretting doing that. But at the moment, she did indeed was looking every bit of the bombshell she was. She wasn't trying to show off. Well, not intentionally. She was staring demurely from the ceiling of Konoha Hospital, looking at nothing in particular and just thinking. She heard a voice called out to her. Bad day, huh? Kurenai sighed. Great, just what I needed, another cheap flirt. As if today wasn't enough already. Yes, it is, she said without turning back or looking at the person. Hopefully, that was a good enough signal to get lost. She was already pent up enough as it was. Listen, I'm really not in the mood to handle any bullshit today. Just off please. She practically waved the man off without even looking at him. The man chuckled. Ouch. That bad, huh? Well, I guess I'll leave you to it. I just wanted some fresh air. Sorry for bothering you. The man sounded generally sincere. Now Kurenai felt really bad that she snapped at him like a Karen, but she couldn't help it. The circumstances that led to her despondent and melancholic mood made her want to kill herself, as hypothetical as it gets. And besides, she was used to so many men hitting on her aside from those who knew her and her colleagues, that she wasn't really accustomed to someone actually wanting to talk to her and get to know her without actually throwing themselves at her. Wait, she exclaimed at the person who was trying to be cordial towards her. Look, I'm really sorry for snapping at you like that. I just had a really bad day, and... She trailed off once the man turned around, and she finally turned around to look at the man she was addressing. She hadn't seen him since she had her back turned away from him. She blushed rather unexpectedly, which was a rare sight for those who knew her. Naruto was wearing a white undershirt which did little to hide his well-built physique along with bandages wrapped on various parts of his arms. His healing prowess had been a little slow since Kurama hadn't woken up yet. He was wearing gray trousers with slippers at the bottom. As casual as it gets. He held a crutch in his right hand for support. His red hair was tied in a ponytail with a few strands escaping from the front. His azure eyes shone bright and warm from the angle he was standing in, but with a tenor of mischievousness in them. His whisker marks, although not as distinctive as Chibi Naruto's, they were more rugged and masculine, making him all the more appealing for poor old Kurenai. His lips tilted upwards slightly upon seeing the effect he had on her. Like what you see. Kurenai blinked and then jumped slightly, blushing full red, which would have made a certain Hyuga proud. What? She stated as if he were incredulous. No. Well, I mean, I was just looking at your bandages, they're quite fascinating. She cursed herself for acting like a schoolgirl all of a sudden. My bandages, huh, I didn't know they were considered such an oddity here in Konoha. He mused. And to her continual embarrassment, the man laughed. Quite full of yourself, aren't you? He wiped stray tears from his eyes and immediately stopped upon seeing her glare but still let out an occasional snicker. I'm so sorry. It's just that I haven't felt this unperturbed in so long that I forgot how to laugh. I needed some type of consolation, mind you. And I apologize begrudgingly that an alluring woman such as yourself were the test subject. She blushed again, although on a lighter note. Flattering me won't get you anywhere, Shinobi-san. He smiled, not at all surprised that she knew he was a shinobi. Although the wounds should have been a dead giveaway. You're right, well, let's start over. His smile was making her feel warmth she hadn't felt before. Not in an intimate sentiment but rather in an earnest tone. His chakra was also calm and soothing but at the same time quite peculiar, she noticed. It was like she could sense the weird nature of it but at the same time nothing at all. Ambiguous was the word she would use. She was a censor after all. But the Uzumaki in front of wasn't one with ordinary abilities. After all, being a master of the sage arts has its perks. My name is Uzumaki Ashina. Pleased to meet you. An Uzumaki. That would explain the red hair. Probably the first to step into Konoha next to Uzumaki-kun after Kushina-san. She inferred. My name is Yuahi Kurenai. Pleased to meet you too, Ashina-san. He nodded with a kind smile. He walked or rather limped his way towards her, which made her lean forward to help him, but he raised a hand signaling that it was fine. He cursed. Wake up, you big ball of cubes. He leaned on the balcony next to her. Are you a sensei? She raised an eyebrow. Soon to be one. What gave me away? I don't know, you just have that sense of professionalism around you, even though how particularly rude you were to me just now. He said the last bit whilst rolling his eyes at her deliberately, which made her squint her eyes and smile with embarrassment. Sorry about that, she said whilst clenching her teeth nervously, keeping her smile before she continued apologetically. I have a lot on my mind right now. The redhead nodded understandingly. She continued, I'm going to be taking on a team this year for the first time. Any particular reason for that? I don't know, there is one reason, but I don't know you well enough to tell you about that. She shrugged with a teasing smile before she continued after a moment of thought. I think it's because I wanted more experience. You've probably heard of Kakashi and Guy, right? He nodded. I have, yes. Well, they're the most experienced out of our batch, fresh out of the academy, and they have a reputation that exists throughout the whole 5 nations. People fear them, some oppositions I even dare say respect them. I guess, she paused before she continued, I guess I want that for myself. Not in a selfish or personal way, but I want a kunoichi to mean something along the lines of that as well. The Uzumaki nodded along before he said, you know, it's not like kunoichi are in any way considered any less powerful. One of our own kunoichi is an exemplification of that. She smiled, already knowing who he was going to say, Tsunade-sama. Yes, technically true. But she was one of the legendary Sannin. There isn't even one of us who's come close to her, so there's a huge margin between Tsunade-sama and us. But there has to be some sort of consolation between there, shouldn't it? I agree, he said before he added, so train. She raised an eyebrow at that and made eye contact with his cerulean eyes. What do you mean? I mean is train until your feet bleed. Train until blisters become a natural thing for your knuckles. Train until you don't feel pain anymore. She smiled. Sounds like something Guy would say. He chuckled. The handsome green beast of Konoha. I'm a huge fan. She had a deadpan expression after hearing that. No. She couldn't believe it. Cammy, my life, the one time I find a guy who is cute, interesting and isn't a complete pervert, and he turns out to be a fan of Guy. So you do think I'm cute? She said that out loud. She covered her mouth with her hands, looked up and found him staring at her with his arms crossed and with a diabolically sinful smile. She blushed heavily, which made the redhead chuckle. It just wasn't her day. There was silence for a while before the redhead broke it by saying, "So it seemed like something was bothering you. Bad mission." She coughed awkwardly into her hand. Still recovering from the awkward dilemma she made, "I guess you could call it that." Ashina had an idea. After all, it wasn't uncommon. "May I ask what happened?" She sighed, almost as if she was perpetually tired. "It's just been a little more than a few months since I've been promoted to Jonin rank. The mission. My first A ranked, which turned into an S ranked." She fought back tears, not wanting to embarrass herself in front of someone she didn't even know. The mission was supposed to be a breeze. A simple client from Kasaragi village needed transportation. We weren't equipped to be taking on a group of bandits who were specialized with Kekkei Genkei. It was just me and a couple of chunin. They had just passed the exam this year, she said with a cruel smile. How are you supposed to deal with people who you've spent days with? Laughing, joking, how are you supposed to forget them just like that? Like they didn't even matter. I've been on missions before. I've lost comrades before. But I don't know, each time, it just feels wrong, every time. But I guess that's what we're taught, isn't it? That's such as the life of a ninja. But I can't help but feel that that's complete and utter horseshit. They weren't even buried properly. For Sake, their heads severed, bodies going cold, blood everywhere you look. 1 second she's talking to me, the next she's. She trailed off once she remembered she was talking to a complete stranger. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on here. She said sheepishly. Most people would have just been pissed off, most likely going away seeing that they weren't going to get her attention, but she noticed that he was listening to her every word and was nodding now and then. She inwardly smiled momentarily, forgetting her despondent attitude. A nice change. And it doesn't hurt that he's cute as hell. Ashina smiled. It's okay, Kurenai-san. It always happens the first few times. I can't say that you'll begin to feel any different as time goes on, I'm sorry. But. He paused and then said, let me give you a piece of advice, Kurenai. You'll learn to live with it and you'll learn to bear with it. This probably hasn't been the first time this has happened to you, and it probably won't be the last, but you'll learn to cope with it as time goes on. If you can't, you're just not cut out to be Jonin material and not enough to be granted the honor of serving your village and your Hokage. It does get easy, but you don't forget. You never do. He spoke in sad memory of a certain someone. As Shinobi, we always and must endure. He concluded with a citation of his lethargic sensei. Kurenai nodded to each and every word. He spoke with charisma that showed that the man was experienced as a leader. He had a somber expression on his face that made Kurenai wonder. It made her wonder just who the man was. Ashina just grinned sheepishly with his hand behind his head. I'm sorry for being so blunt. But it's just reality, Kurenai-san. But honestly, I wouldn't have expected a different reaction. I don't know what exactly happened, and what you and your team went through, but I can tell that you cared about them. In the end, a shinobi is still human. He continued, but from the discipline you have on your sentiments, considering what happened. It shows that you can make it. That you have what it takes to survive. I hope we work together in the future. Hopefully, as comrades. She agreed with his each and every word and nodded, pertaining she hadn't minded. Are you applying for citizenship, Ashina-san? She asked neutrally but hopeful inwardly. Wait, why was she hopeful? He smiled. I am. Hokage-sama just offered me this morning. And it doesn't hurt that I have family here as well. She smiled upon hearing of the word family. She knew who that meant, of course. After all, Azuki Yugao, her friend and practically sister, made sure of that. Uzumaki-kun is a very cute boy. A friend of mine is quite fond of him. That boy really has a heart made of gold. Oh, and his adorable whisker marks. She stated with a fond tone before frowning a little. You know of his circumstances, Ashina-san. Anger flashed through his azure eyes for a second. Kurenai could have sworn she saw crimson but quickly shook it off as a concoction of her own imagination. His childhood, whether or not he got his consolation in the end, it was still a touchy subject for him. Yes, I know. Hokage-sama was very reluctant about it, but I know of Naruto-kun's circumstances. He will be under my protection of the Uzumaki clan from now on. Well, not officially a clan yet, but it will be in a few hours. He said with a sober and earnest tone. Good, I'm glad, she said with a smile before shifting nervously a bit. I would like to meet your friend though. To thank her for caring. After hearing about Naruto-kun's circumstances, I'm sure you can understand. He said with a sad smile. Of course, I'll talk to her. She replied, sounding a little nervous. Is everything alright, Kurenai-san? He asked, a little worried, but the corner of his lips tilted upwards slightly upon seeing her blush a little. Do you want to maybe have a cup of tea later? After you leave the hospital, obviously, she asked nervously, not making any eye contact at all. How were these things done anyway? You mean like a date? He grinned. Now Kurenai was getting pissed off. She smirked inwardly as she thought of a way to get back at him. That's how you wanna play, huh? She leaned forward, pressing her together a little bit. Showing off her assets and making prime use of them. And what if it was Ashina-kun? She purred. Now it was Ashina's turn to be caught off guard. Oh, you mate with her. Wake Kurama. He cleared his throat. I would be honored to take you, Kurenai-chan. Kurenai smirked, but not without a healthy blush of her own. Good. Ashina 0. Kurenai 1. You can pick me up from my apartment 2 days from now. Sayonara, Ashina-kun. She then left, leaving him behind, slack-jawed. Ashina was still standing at the same place he was since, with a dumbfounded look on his face, but shook it off soon after with a small chuckle. She looked back towards him. Just for the record though, you're not an actual fan of Guy, are you? He shrugged it off in front of her with a teasing smile, which led her to smile too before she left. Damn, she's just as beautiful as I remember her. Asuma-sensei was one lucky asshole. I'd say. You've finally decided to grace me with your presence. Damn furball. You, Kit. You try to go through chakra exhaustion when your container is about to pull something as stupid as using the level 3 Haraishin without warning or consulting me first. But before Ashina could retort with a piece of his mind, Kurama held up his paw. Yeah. I know you did not have a choice. We will discuss this later. For now. Kurama smirked. Ashina groaned. Oh, God, seems like you have been having fun. The despondent Uzumaki, while not relatively happy before, his mood changed and suddenly took a dark turn, which the fox could read all too well. Yeah, well, too bad. The fox sighed. He knew this was going to be difficult. Kit, listen to me. You know as much as I do that the shy Hyuga would have wanted you to move on. It has been far too long since. And the fox trailed off, knowing how many painful memories he was digging up by mentioning her. He paused a little before he added, it is unpleasant seeing you like this. Ashina smiled at that, as that sympathy I detect. Hush. The fox knew he was kidding, but he expected a serious response, so the redhead answered with a forlorn smile which was so unlike his former child self. I know, Kurama, but I just feel guilt. She was everything. My light, my hope. Do you think I could ever feel the same way about someone else again? The fox responded after a while, I cannot say anything about that, Kit. You know better than that. But take comfort in the fact that your chibi ninja will do everything right for her, what you could not. You now know what Kushina had in mind. And you know our plan with Hiyashi. You have to move on. Ashina sighed. Maybe. Just give it a chance. Fine. He then smirked after the fox closed off his eyes, inditing sleep once more. You know, you give really good relationship advice. And this isn't the first time. Whether if it was war everywhere. Did the big scary fox have a vixen to twinkle his fur to? He laughed when the fox just flipped him off and went back to ignoring him. Just as he was about to exit the mindscape. For the record, it is good to see you're okay, Kit. Ashina gave an appreciative smile and exited the mindscape. Same, furball. Naruto was sitting on top of the Yondaime's head, on top of the Hokage monument. The sentiments going through the young blondes were along the lines of, am I really a demon? Why did the fourth Hokage choose me? Was it because I had no one? Was I really that expendable? What did I do to deserve this? But the most excessive amongst them was, did my parents even love or know me? The blonde was undergoing something he hadn't gone through with since he was first kicked out of the orphanage. He had to survive living by himself for a couple of days eating whatever he could find until the Hokage saw what happened via his Anbu. The blonde still had occasional nightmares due to him surviving the cold nights by himself. Missing the academy, and even if he went, he couldn't stay awake. Everyone just shook it off as the blonde with his theatrics. It was not until the blonde was visibly malnourished enough that the Hokage finally noticed. He did not tell anyone about his current place of dwelling because he did not want to be a burden to his Ji-san. The blonde was quickly realizing that he was going through one of his bouts of anxiety and depression. Not that he knew what that was. Whenever he had one of these low moods, as he called them, he always put on one of his fake smiles. And as time went on and a couple of bowls of ramen later, spending time with his Ayame Ne-chan and Tuki Jizan, he would be back to his merry self. He always shrugged it off to assure himself that he was fine and he would become Hokage, then everyone would acknowledge him. Now, he was not so sure. His bout of depression did not seem as easily segregated as it normally did. And being honest, the blonde did not want it to this time. Before he could engulf himself into further misery, a voice called out to him. Morning. The man held a cheery voice which Naruto thought was strange since no one other than a handful of people used it for him. It was usually demon this and demon that, from what he heard, since they were always whispers. It was not like he gave up on humanity itself. It just made him wary towards people in general, not that anyone could blame the blonde. The blonde turned around to see a red-haired man with azure eye walking towards him. Yo. The man waved his hand. Who are you? Naruto asked warily. The man just smiled and said, let's just say I'm a friend of yours, Naruto-kun. I would like to talk to you if you don't mind. He stated with a calm tone. Naruto just stared at the strange tomato man with squinted eyes whilst tilting his head slightly, which would have made Kurenai or Yugo and swoon, kawaii, before saying, you seem kinda familiar, Oji-san. The man in question blinked and then blinked again. And then suddenly his mouth fell open and a dark cloud hung over his head. Don't call me that. It makes me feel old, you know. Kami, I'm slightly older than 2-chan was and he still calls me Oji-san. The blonde just grinned sheepishly with his hand behind his head, which was a habit he had inherited from his parents. Wait, you know, Faye. Ripoff. Weird, isn't it? Kit. Hush. He suddenly had wide eyes. It's you. The Oji-san from the other night. He said shockingly. I said don't call me that. You can call me Ni-san or Ni-chan but not that. Well, you're old, so why shouldn't I call you that? Didn't anyone tell you the difference between an Oji-san or a Ni-san, chibi? Oi, who you callin' chibi? Well, who you callin' an old man? The two had their heads colliding with each other with sparks visible, until the older one pulled back, admitting defeat with a small chuckle. Okay, you win. I'm sorry, but I'm not that old, you know. Naruto narrowed his eyes a little bit and lowered his head, it's okay. It's just that I haven't called anyone Ni-chan before. Ashina frowned upon seeing his narrowed eyes. Come with me, Naruto-kun. He said resolutely. But before Naruto could respond, the older man put his hand on his shoulder and suddenly disappeared in a red flash. Ashina and Naruto arrived at the training ground where Ashina had planted the seals at. As soon as they entered, the Hiraishin triggered a fail-safe Fuin seal which made 4 of his clones to appear, resonating a barrier similar to the Shisekyojin although not as drastic in defense, to surround the field. The primary difference between the Shisekyojin Ashina's variant was that this seal was transparent, making it suitable for covertness. The clones were pumped with extra chakra by using a seal Ashina invented to withstand the depletion. As soon as Naruto arrived, he fell on his. Quite literally. He felt nauseous but was able to shake it off because he did not have breakfast yet. Upon seeing the pale condition of his chibi, Ashina just grinned sheepishly with the familiar quirk. Sorry about that. It happens the first few times. Ni-chan, that was amazing. You've gotta teach me that, you know. The blonde said enthusiastically with stars in his eyes. The older man laughed. Of course. Maybe when you're older, Naruto-kun. For now, I would like to talk to you about something important. Is that okay? The blonde did not say anything but nodded. What do you know about the Uzumaki clan? The man asked him. The Uzumaki clan. Hey, wait, my name is Uzumaki. Does that mean I belong to a clan, Ni-chan? The blonde asked excitedly. Well, yes, actually. The Uzumaki was a prominent clan which existed in Uzushiogakure. The symbol on your back is actually the symbol of the clan. The Uzumaki were distant cousins of the Senju, the clan of the Shodai Hokage. Ashina smiled upon seeing Naruto having stars in his eyes upon hearing of being related to the first Hokage. Wait till you meet Ba-chan. Ya know, the Senju chose to symbolize their clans, friendship by adding the Uzumaki's clan symbol to the back of Konoha's flak jackets. That's why every Chunin and Jonin wear them. The Uzumaki were renowned for many of their unique traits, but they were most feared and respected throughout the ninja world due to their skill and mastery with Fuinjutsu. What's Fuinjutsu, Ni-chan? Sealing Jutsu, Naruto-kun. Oh, my point being is that your clan was quite respected, Naruto-kun, and rightfully so. Sadly, Uzushiogakure is no more. It was destroyed by some of the other nations deeming them to be too powerful. Most of the members of the clan died or either went into hiding and spread throughout the world. He paused when he saw the blonde's expression turn into a grim one and then said, except for one of them. The blonde perked up when he heard that. Do you know who it was, Ni-chan? Please. Why you have to tell me? The blonde was desperate but the older man held up his hand. Being as impatient as the blonde was, he was about to retort but the older man spoke first. Do you know one trait that the Uzumaki had which was really dominant? The blonde was dense. Everyone knew that, but his denseness and sometimes asininity were in direct contrast to his intelligence. Both his parents were gifted. Minato perfected the Hiraishin no Jutsu and created the Rasengan. Kushina was a master as per tradition in her clan of Kenjutsu and Suiten Ninjutsu. And both of them were prodigies in Fuinjutsu. And Naruto was no different. He just did not know it yet. By merely chance whilst sneaking around in the Konoha library, reading a simple book on ninjutsu with a side note in Fuinjutsu, he invented stink bombs for his pranks. He saw a small seal for entrapment from the book which he easily drew for his pranks. The seal just came naturally to him. He did not know the prevalent fact that Shinobi strategics aka book reading could very well save his or a comrade's life due to a simple change of tactics simply because nobody had told him the paramountcy in regards to it. He was dense and not able to pick things up as quickly as others his age because he had not been reared properly. But there was a lot more to him than people gave him credit for. The Anbu which were victimized by the evil blonde bastard, as they called him, could very well testify to the fact that the blonde knew how to evade even the most diligent of the Anbu, but except for a certain brown-haired scarred sensei, they could never catch him. His tactics, although unorthodox, always worked. Ashina knew that, of course. The blonde shook his head indicating he had not. Well, the Uzumakis were predominantly known for their vitality, their chakra reserves. He paused a little before he said, and their ash-red hair. But Ni-chan, you have red hair. The blonde suddenly realized, does that mean? It's true, Naruto-kun. I'm an Uzumaki. What? The older man remained silent, allowing Naruto to fathom and deal with the influx of emotions he had going on. The blonde in all conscience did not know what to think. Ever since he grew up, he had been told by his Gigi that he had no family and that his parents had been killed the day the Kyuubi attacked Konoha. If his parents were not present, that did not mean that other members of his now just recently discovered awesome clan did not exist. To be honest, this was all the blonde ever wanted. To have someone to call as family. Family. The word sounded so foreign to him. So the old man told me all about your unique circumstances. The man was not able to finish as he suddenly found himself being glomped by his blonde counterpart, who suddenly started sobbing. The sobbing soon started to subsume whimpers as soon as the blonde found warmth at being embraced back. The blonde just had enough. He had kept his emotions hidden behind his fake smile for way too long. He never let people see his vulnerability. But this time, he did not care if anyone saw him being vulnerable like this. This time, he thought this. He had lived enough of his life in isolation and seclusion. Consequences be damned. Ashina just gave a sad smile when the blonde suddenly hugged and immediately hugged him back. Shish. I'm here, Naruto-kun. You don't have to be alone anymore. Naruto and Ashina had been talking for a while now, with Naruto asking most of the questions and Ashina softly answering them. So, Ashina Ni-chan, you'll stay in Konoha now? The blonde asked hopefully. Ashina just smiled and ruffled the blonde's hair affectionately, which made the blonde stiffen but soon relaxed into it. Ashina sighed. He knew it was difficult for him. After all, he went through the same thing at his age. So he could probably guess what was going on in that dense brain of his. This was gonna take some getting used to. I am, Naruto-kun. I just got done dealing with the council and the old man. The paperwork's done. You're looking at the official clan head of the Uzumaki clan. Ashina said with a nervous smile with his hand behind his head. Really? I'm gonna be part of a clan. He kept chanting the phrase over and over again. Deep down, some part of the blonde was trying to convince himself that this was all a dream and he still had no one and there was no such thing as the Uzumaki clan. He would still be an orphan. He would again wake up in his dump of an apartment in isolation and loneliness. Ashina, as sensing the blonde's thoughts, put his hand on his shoulder. Naruto-kun. I will always be with you from now on. Okay. He smiled at the blonde and the blonde returned it, but his smile was subdued. Ni-chan, why you said you talked to Gigi? Naruto asked nervously. Yeah, what about it? Ashina inquired. He had an idea what Naruto was going to ask about. Did Gigi tell you about T the fox? Ashina recalled his previous meeting with the Hokage, not gonna be forgetting about that anytime soon. I don't think I've ever seen Gigi that vulnerable before. Flashback. The Hokage and Ashina were in the room in which the redhead was admitted in. Ashina was sitting on the bed, with a bored expression. He wanted to get out of here. The blonde-turned-redhead always hated hospitals. Even as a child, he never could stay in here. For long, that is. At least this place hasn't changed. These white walls still give me the creeps. Keep focus, Kit. We still have to convince the old geezer about everything. Yeah, but I have a feeling the old man already believes us by the look on his face. The Hokage sat in the chair next to Ashina's bed with a paper pertaining to Ashina's test results with a dumbfounded look. He really is who he says he is. At first, the Hokage was skeptical but not without his own curiosity. Of course, who would believe such lunacy? But when he saw the test results, it pretty much solidified his deductions. Up to the point that his eyes were the size of saucers. He really is Naruto-kun. But he looks so much more like Minato now. With small features of Kushina. But Naruto-kun is blonde like his father, so what's with the red hair? The Hokage was staring at Ashina with his dumbfounded look ever since an Iryo Nin arrived with the test results pertaining to his lineal information. Ashina was getting annoyed now. What? It really is you, Naruto-kun. The Hokage was able to get out. Yeah, I kinda told you that. Looking at Naruto now, he found that it was kind of hard to pertain differences between him and Minato except for the hair and the whisker marks. He had the same masculine features with a hint of femininity in them. Azure eyes. Yep, exactly like Minato, although his eyes showed a glint of mischief. His body language. Some of his facial features were not reminiscent of Minato. Definitely Kushina. Chibi Naruto was more like Kushina in every way, as far as his facial features were concerned. But he looked a lot more like Minato now. Everyone could tell the unmistakable consonant now that Naruto was indeed the son of the Kiroi Senko. Well, except for that red hair of course. Probably deliberate on his part. The Hokage mused. The Hokage cleared his throat. Ahem. Well, sorry about that. Of course, you could understand my stupefaction. The Hokage gestured with hands feigning sarcasm. Of course. Who knew the old man could be sarcastic? Well, I wish I could say I was glad to see you, Naruto-kun, but something tells me that you wouldn't be here if everything was amicable. The Hokage said with a somber tone. The redhead casual and uncaring expression immediately took on a darkened one. Konoha is no more. Burned to the ground. The Hokage immediately felt as though his heart had suddenly become hollow. He simply could not imagine a world where Konoha did not reside. He suddenly realized that the person standing in front of him was none other than the Naruto Uzumaki. The very same boy who was shunned by the villagers for something which they could not and did not want to comprehend. Now the Sandaime had years of experience. Both in wars and negotiations. You could call him the Kami no Shinobi for many things. But over the past few years, ever since he retook the mantle of being Hokage, the old war-ridden Hokage had become slightly neglectful. He did not have the same charisma as he once did. He even let himself become overwhelmed by the council at times by his advisors, the decision most conspicuously being the Uchiha massacre. Now, the Uchihas deserved what they got to them. There was no denying that. They were power-hungry, jutsu-copying bastards, as a certain bandaged comrade of his liked to phrase. But doing this had done a condemnable thing to one of the only good, honorable and righteous Uchihas left, who took the censure as having the burden of being both a shinobi of Konoha and dolorously as a member of his clan. The Hokage still felt guilty and lost many nights of slumber because of that. There could have been another way. There was also the Hyuga affair. Accepting Kumogakure's demands is a last resort. Especially after what they tried to do. I shouldn't have accepted it. He also felt ample amounts of guilt in regards to a certain whiskered blonde. He also knew of the blonde's secret, which made him all the more aggregated with guilt. I should have fought for him. I should have. Simply put, Hiruzen, as in accordance with himself and his consciousness, was simply too old and for the most part, exhausted perpetually from his position. He was just not the same anymore. But the aura and semblance that the redhead had flaunted confidence and charisma which was so unlike his chibi version. This Naruto displayed the same nuance as his parents. The same charisma, charm and magnetism. The inborn and in-depth natal preeminence which was not in a hubristic sense, more like in regards to plenary guidance. The expression the Hokage held was a grave and remorseful one. He felt proud of Naruto for making it this far, but not without traces of his own guilt seeping in. For not being there for the blonde. And for the sake of his beloved village. Somehow he felt responsible, like he could not do anything to prevent such a monstrosity. But he quickly shook it off as his stupefaction taking hold of him, and because there were more important concerns to look into. A few minutes went by as Ashina sat waiting for the Hokage to comprehend what he said. He knew that the old man needed a few moments. The Hokage did not know what to think. His love for Konoha, which was implanted by his sensei Tobirama and Hashirama, was overwhelming, and it felt like a fresh Kaiden jutsu to the chest to hear that his beloved village was no more. That the will of fire itself and everything it stood for was no more. It had perished. Hiruzen shuddered at the thought. This is grave news, Naruto-kun. The Hokage said with a somber tone. You don't say. The Hokage sighed. As much as I would love for you to ensue sarcasm in our conversation, we have many more important things that require diligence, don't you think? Of course. Ashina replied, immediately straightened. I take it you were the Hokage? The Hokage asked. Yes. The Nanadime. Oh, who was the Rokudime? The Hokage asked with a hint of vehemence. Kakashi. Ashina said with a smile. I see. To be honest, the Hokage was not all that surprised about that particular fact. He always thought about who would be his successor, and Kakashi always seemed like the logical decision other than that lazy Nara who would be the best suited, but the Hokage knew that he would not submit to this role willingly and he was simply too lazy for it. The Hokage paused for a while and looked at Ashina with a contemplative expression. He already knew that everyone from Ashina's generation had been bereft of life, if Ashina's expression was anything to apprehend. So he did not find the need to question his role nor his generation's. Who was behind it and what became of the other villages? The Hokage asked with a hint of finality. Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito. Ashina said with a tone full of spite and contempt. The room suddenly felt cold to the Hokage. He had heard of the traitorous Uchiha from his sensei. The legendary leader of the clan. One of the founders of the Konoha village itself. The only formidable opponent to go head-on-head with the aboriginal Kami no Shinobi Senju Hashirama. How is he still alive? It's not possible. As for the second Uchiha, Obito, he was one of Minato's students. Didn't he die in the war saving his teammates? The Hokage then turned to Ashina. He would inquire later. And as for the other villages, I'm kind of worried that I might jinx the timeline. I've already revealed information that I shouldn't have. At least in regards to events that might actually change something significant. I'm either in a parallel universe or in a paradoxical loop. I'll have to consult Kurama about this. The jutsu should have negated the paradox. It shouldn't affect the future if I do things without relevance to the past in case of a parallel. But if it's a paradox, it's safe to say I'm probably. 'Cause if that's the case, then even my mere presence can affect the timeline. Madara. At least Gigi doesn't know about this, and for the time being, I shouldn't tell him either. At least not before I talk to Kurama. I didn't account for that as I was about to get captured. And without really testing the jutsu and accounting for all the correspondence relevant to time travel, I shouldn't say anything. At least in regards to major events. Which would drastically affect anything. So wait for a while and I'll give you the information if the circumstances don't change in regards to the timeline. The Hokage considered it and said, fair enough. Your sensei wasn't really forthcoming with the information that much either. Ashina said with a small scorn which was reminiscent of Kushina. The Hokage felt his guilt creeping up on him again and figured he could not keep it in anymore. But I suppose it wasn't really relevant at that time with the war going on. Ashina trailed off once he saw the look on Hiruzen's face. What's wrong, old man? Ashina inquired. Hiruzen suddenly bowed his head in shame, not able to look Ashina in the eyes. Naruto-kun. I'm sorry, for not being there for you, for not fighting harder for you, for not taking you in, for not taking care of you, for not training you. I never knew that it was this bad, and even that is an understatement. Even though you never complained once. I'm sorry. Ashina remained quiet and the look on his face was a blank one. The Hokage continued, there is also the matter of your inheritance. I still haven't told your younger counterpart about it. Thinking that it was for the best. But when I heard from the Anbu that you tried to take your own life because of the way the villagers treated you, ostracized you. I thought that the law I implemented would help, but it was the exact opposite. Your parents would be ashamed of me. There's also the matter of the Kyuubi. Your counterpart just found out about it. How am I supposed to look him in the eyes now? Knowing that I lied to him. He's probably heartbroken right now and it's all my fault. The Hokage trailed off after having said what he wanted to say. Ashina still had a blank look on his, but it changed into one of understanding. He put his hand on Hiruzen's shoulder and said, Gigi, trust me when I say that, I forgave you and everyone else a long time ago. All of you had a long time to repent for the decisions you made regarding me. Ashina said, knowing that he still had the time travel paradox to keep in mind, and the Hokage understood. However, I'm not the one you should be asking forgiveness from. I already dealt with my demons a long time ago. It's for my chibi to decide whether he forgives you or not. I will tell him everything about Tu-chan and Ka-chan, but in due time. Your forgiveness lies with him. Same goes for Ero-sensei and Ba-chan. Fair enough. The Hokage felt a small amount of relief and gave a small smile inwardly. He knew what he had to do. He owned it to both Minato, Kushina and of course their child to at least to ask Naruto himself for his forgiveness. The Hokage chuckled when he heard the moniker. He knew who it meant, of course. Fair enough. And Ba-chan. Tsunade. She and I grew close together. You know she's part Uzumaki, so she's family. I see. Well, I'll send for a message for Jiraiya. Do you want to let him know about yourself? The Hokage asked and smiled when he heard about his student. Ashina pondered for a moment and considered, maybe. Maybe not. As I said, there's still the time travel. The Hokage interrupted. Yes. They both remained quiet for a moment before Ashina broke it. Old man, I have some demands. Hiruzen nodded for the redhead to continue. First of all, delay the team placements. At least for about 2 months. And let me stay in the Uzumaki compound. I'll establish the clan here. The Hokage was about to voice his concerns, but Ashina beat him to it. I'll handle the council. I know about them. They'll probably voice some type of conciliation. But I'll take care of it. Ashina stated. I see. Why do you need 2 months? The Hokage asked, slightly confused at his demands. To train Chibi. In just about everything. He'll be living with me, of course. You are already aware of the fact that he knows the Kage Bunshin, and you know just how commodious and versatile it is for us Uzumaki. Get him started on Fuinjutsu and maybe on Kenjutsu. He's gotta stay true to his roots. Ashina responded. Also, Chibi's going to be with me. I'll take on a team. But instead of 3, I'll take only 2 genin. Certain exceptions have been made in accordance with team placements. So that can be arranged. Who do you have in mind? Ashina smiled, but it was slightly perturbed. Probably the only person who truly ever understood me. Hyuga Hinata. Oh, why her in particular? Asked the Hokage, slightly confused. She was my fiancé. The Hokage heard Ashina say her name and saw the pain flash through his eyes when he spoke it. Hiruzen knew that pain all too well. He had been through 2 wars. Lost comrades. Lost his friends, his sensei. But this pain was different from all the others. It was the pain when the person whom you gave your heart to, who was everything to you, was dead. She passed away, didn't she? The Hokage could not help but ask. Yes. She gave her life for me. I just wish I could've done something different. You're going over the scenario 1,000 times and drowning yourself in guilt. Nothing good's ever going to come out of that, Naruto-kun. Trust me on this. The Hokage interrupted, knowing that familiar darkness which he himself still felt up to this day. You know, I tried to take my own life. Not once but twice when I was just a stupid kid. People never found out because the fox always healed me. It's a miracle the seal remained intact. I'm not trying to make you guilty, Gigi. But it's the truth. It happened in my timeline and it happened in this one. Looking back now, I can see the despair that my eyes held. But you know what changed all that? It was after the genin exams in my timeline. I attempted it once again and jumped from the Hokage monument. Little did I know, Hinata was watching everything and jumped after me and caught me. When I asked her why, she said, "Because you're everything to me." I was so dense back then. I never knew how much she loved me, until much later on when we became friends after the incident. She was everything to me, old man. And I'll be damned if my chibi is gonna make the same mistakes I did. It was only after meeting Hinata that I changed for the better. I mean, friends helped, but she changed me, made me a better person. Helped me out of my melancholy. Taught me leniency, taught me what love actually was. The Hokage nodded, not being able to say anything. Was he in the right to say anything in regards to Naruto's life? Maybe he had lost that privilege, but there was still a chance to redeem himself and he would take it. And he would try his best to keep making up for his mistakes. We'll have to think of a guise for you. Hiruzen said, changing the evocative subject. I will reinstate you in the Konoha Shinobi forces. You were on a long-term mission and were in the Anbu before that. Show me your arm so I can place the Anbu tattoo there. Sounds good, Ashina said, giving his arm. Hiruzen flashed through a series of hand seals and placed his palm on Ashina's shoulder. The Anbu mark sizzled on Ashina's shoulder and appeared in a faded red. There. Suits you, Naruto-kun. It makes wonder if your counterpart joins the Anbu. Your pranks might liven up the captain's dull soul. Yeah, hurt like a bitch though. It does that. And about joining. Nah, I know myself. I wouldn't be able to adapt to the meticulous lifestyle. I may be strong, but I need my sleep. Ashina said with a small grin, and the Hokage returned it. And what about an alias? Uzumaki Ashina. The redhead answered. Oh, the Uzumaki clan head. The redhead gave a light chuckle. Yes. The very same. The forefather of Konoha's Fuinjutsu. Quite a notorious reputation you have to keep up too. Ashina-kun. Thanks, old man. But I'll manage. Ashina replied without revealing too much. He did not want to divulge any of his abilities unless he absolutely had to. Not even to the Hokage himself. Deception is the essence of being a shinobi, is what Kakashi-sensei used to say. One of the minute things the lazy taught me when I was just a genin. Cliché, of course. Ashina knew that, but efficient also. If that's all, old man, you should call for the council meeting now. I figure if I can get done with it now, rather than later, I could visit Chibi after this. The council was not going to make this easy. The Hokage sighed and called for his Anbu. He then rubbed his temples. Why do I feel like I have a migraine coming? I'm really getting too old for this shit. Hinata bent down for the umpteenth time that day and coughed as she felt her chest swell as pain aggravated inside it. Again. She stood trying to ignore the aching pain in her left hamstring, which was swelling due to a Juken strike, and again took her gentle fist form. 50 out of 361 of her tenketsu had been closed off by her younger sister Hanabi. Her sister moved forward to strike Hinata with a palm strike. Hinata tried to block it, but due to the searing pain in her ribcage, could not do it fast enough and almost took the full brunt of the blow. Hiyashi was watching all of this with a fierce demeanor. He then decided that he had seen enough. He held up his hand and signaled for them to stop. Enough. Both of you, go get yourselves cleaned up. Hanabi, it is almost time for your instructor to arrive. Hinata, meet me in the study with Kurenai-san. Both of them bowed to their father and then to each other and then left. Yuichi Kurenai was watching all of this with a grief-stricken look which was verily discordant on her beautiful face. She and Hinata had grown very close to each other ever since she'd been appointed by the Hokage and Hiyashi for looking after her to a certain degree. She had started viewing Hinata as her younger sister. Who wouldn't consider her as one? She was so benevolent and caring, but mostly reserved, almost like a gentle wallflower. Always kind and compassionate to people who were the exact verbal antagonists to her. Just like her arrogant asshole of a cousin. Kurenai inferred. It really pissed her off, even more than perversion, was that members of the clan reacted towards Hinata this way, saying things like, "She's weak," and "unworthy of the clan." Kurenai knew that Hinata had the potential to become of the best Juken users in the clan. She had seen the way Hinata had practiced her katas and sparred with her a couple of times. Kurenai knew that she could become exceptional at the art if her confidence could be resolved. She had excellent chakra control. Only one factor handicapped her, and it was her chakra reserves, which could be developed if worked on. How Hiashi never saw all this was beyond Kurenai. Kurenai sighed remorsefully when she recalled a conversation she had with Hinata. It was not that Hinata did not want to win. She simply did not want to hurt her little sister. It started out as simply defending herself and not retaliating her sister's strikes, which as time passed, turned into throwing her matches away simply for the sake of not hurting Hanabi. Her father grew more and colder towards Hinata as he saw Hanabi winning over her elder sister, which started to demoralize Hinata's confidence and self-respect. Kurenai had not noticed that Hyuga-ko's presence. He then called out to her, "Kurenai-san, your presence is requested with Hiashi-sama." "Thank you. I'll be there shortly," Kurenai replied with a small nod of her head. Ko bowed and then left. Kurenai made her way to Hiashi's study. The design of the study was extravagant but not overly lush. It was a moderate-sized dojo. Behind Hiashi's desk was an assortment of various katanas which were probably exorbitant. It was a balance of nobility with luxury, which was reflected upon the Hyuga themselves, as they were known as the most powerful clan in Konoha with their all-seeing eyes. Kurenai thought that was a bit excessive on their part. Hiashi was sitting behind his small desk in the traditional manner. In front of him were various papers relevant to clan business. Hinata was sitting on the left of Hiashi, in the same dignified manner as her father, but something was different. Looking closely at Hinata's expression, it was patent to Kurenai that Hinata was heartbroken about something, the way her lavender-tinted eyes held unshed tears and had a tight grip on her kimono. Kurenai gave a small smile to Hinata and discreetly mouthed the words, "It's going to be okay." That seemed to work slightly as Hinata gave a small smile back but still held a grim expression. Kurenai frowned inwardly but knew she was going to find out soon enough, so made her way in front of the desk and gave a small bow. "Hiashi-sama." "Greetings, Kurenai-san. Please sit," Hiashi replied cordially. Kurenai nodded and sat down in front of Hiashi's desk. "How are your injuries?" Hiashi inquired in a neutral but cold tone. "I'm feeling quite better, Hiashi-sama. Thank you for asking." Kurenai smiled inwardly, thinking of a certain red-headed Uzumaki, but remained neutral in front of the clan head. "I'll get straight to the point, Kurenai-san. The spar that was conducted was to determine the heiress position of the clan. It has been decided that Hinata is to be disinherited from the heiress position and the position is to be given to Hanabi." Kurenai was shocked at what was disclosed. She understood now why Hinata had such a forlorn expression. Being honest, Kurenai felt pity for the indigo-haired girl. Ostracized by her clan, rejected by her own father in favor of her little sister. She must be so heartbroken right now. "You're such a bastard, Hiashi. You and your clan are blind for not seeing Hinata for who she truly is." She cursed inwardly. I see," she said with a cold tone, barely keeping a hold on her sentiments. If Hiashi was affected by Kurenai's cold demeanor, he did not show it. "I'm officially assigning Hinata under your wardship. As of now, she is officially disinherited from the clan heiress position. She is to be under your care, but she will remain in the Hyuga compound. She will train here, but she will primarily be under your care from now on, as she is unworthy of the Hyuga." Kurenai did not say anything, so Hiashi dismissed both her and Hinata. They made their way in the garden of the compound. As soon as they were alone and away from prying eyes, Hinata suddenly pounced at Kurenai, wrapping her arms around her and started crying. Kurenai could not help but shed tears of her own. She just embraced her back and whispered and cooed soothing words to the girl, telling her that everything will be alright. Naruto had a nervous look on his face as he sat anticipating his newfound Ni-chan's answer to his polemical question. Yeah, I know of it. So what? Naruto heard that, then blinked once, then twice. Was it? He scratched his head thinking he had not heard the redhead correctly. Ashina just laughed when he saw the confused look on the blonde's face, which turned into a glare upon seeing the older man chuckling. Naruto was about to beat him down when, sorry, I'm sorry. Ashina's expression turned serious but still smiled warmly at his chibi. Naruto-kun, I told you that our clan was adept in fuinjutsu, right? The blonde nodded, so Ashina continued, well, there is a seal called the Hokage no Fuin-shiki. It was developed by our clan. Normally, a shisho fuin is used to, say, seal a large enemy or an evil spirit into a target, such as an object or a human body. He grinned when he saw the blonde pale at the mention of evil spirits. If the shisho fuin is not strong enough to hold the desired entity, a stronger variant of the seal is used, which is called the Hokage no Fuin-shiki. With me so far. The blonde looked a little confused, not used to that type of lexicons, but understood what Ashina said about the seal. So there are two versions of the seal, you said? Ashina nodded, happy that Naruto was discerning it. He continued, correct. The Hokage no Fuin-shiki is actually one integral with two seals overlapped with each other of the same render. This allows the enemy spirit's chakra to merge with whoever they're sealed into. The blonde nodded along and asked whatever he misunderstood or needed clarification. Ashina then continued, raise your shirt, Naruto-kun, and focus some of your chakra on your stomach. The blonde nodded nervously. It's nothing to be scared of, Naruto-kun. Trust me, I won't let anything happen. Trust your Ni-chan, okay? The blonde nodded, feeling slightly better, and raised his shirt, showing his slightly tanned stomach. He took a deep breath and focused his chakra to the sanctioned area. A seal appeared in the shape of a spiral with a peculiar pattern surrounding it. Ah, calm down, Naruto-kun. The blonde instantly calmed down, but still slightly scared of the seal. He was putting on a stout face, but deep down he felt unnerved about the fact that he was a demon. Now, you understand what I was trying to explain to you, Naruto-kun. I think so. The fox inside of you is real. There's no denying that, and nothing will change that. But that doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, ya know. You are a Jinchuriki, Naruto-kun. Fuinjutsu is easy enough to get the simple fact that the fox is sealed inside of you, but it's a separate entity and you another. You are not a demon and you never will be. No person saying otherwise will change that. Simply put, the fox is the jailed and you are the jailer. I take offense to that. Ashina's sweat dropped. Sorry about that, furball. Oi. Naruto was processing what Ashina said in the meantime, and then pondered, what did you mean when you said it doesn't have to be a bad thing, and what's a Jinchuriki, Ni-chan? Oh, sorry. I didn't tell you about that. Jinchuriki are humans that have a biju sealed within them. There are 9 total biju in existence. They are differentiated by the number of tails they have. The fox is one of them, which is the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The strongest out of all of them. Ashina explained. I'm flattered, Kit. Ashina laughed. Don't get used to it, furball. The blonde nodded. Ashina put his hand on the blonde's shoulder. Listen carefully, Naruto-kun. Each Jinchuriki had its own purpose in its village. In our village, the tailed beast was sealed to save the village. In Sunagaku, the abilities that manifested in their Jinchuriki were studied so that non-Jinchuriki could replicate them. More often than not, in most of the villages, the Jinchuriki were meant to be nothing more than military potential, with little regard for the Jinchuriki or even the tailed beast itself. Ashina said with a slightly angered tone at the end. Even though the future things changed for the better, that did not mean that he had to appreciate it. Same went for Kurama. Oh, the blonde said, slightly sad at the fact that the villages would treat others like him as just military potential. Ashina then put a hand on the blonde's head and ruffled his hair. That doesn't mean the same for you, Naruto-kun. The old man protected you from the people who wanted to turn you into a weapon because the Yondaime Hokage asked him to. But why did the Yondaime choose me? Why not anyone else? The blonde asked, slightly frustrated with the thoughts going on in his head. Ashina smiled at the blonde, because he believed in you. He thought that you were the one who would change everything. You don't wanna disappoint the Yondaime now, do you? No. I'll be the best there ever was. Believe it. Naruto said with a warm smile, thrilled that his idol would give him a sense of obligation, almost back to his exuberant self. Good. Because I'll train you to be the best there ever was, Naruto-kun. Believe it. Naruto and Ashina had made their way to the Uzumaki, Namikaze clan compound. The compound itself was surrounded by a reinforced wooden wall. The wall was contrived by Senju Hashirama as a gesture of recognition for the Uzumaki clan. It was about roughly 10 feet, surrounding the compound. The Uzumaki whirlpool was imprinted on the wall on regular intervals in a faded blood red. The compound itself was not colossal, but on account of the clan's obscurity, their techniques and jutsu, precaution was mandatory. The compound was roughly an acre, but was ensconced diligently. The gateway itself was donned with the Uzumaki crest carved into the surface with the gates intersecting the symbol in two. Ashina made his way in front of the gate with Naruto following behind anxiously. Naruto found it kind of daunting when his Ni-chan had told him that he would be living with him in one of the most affluent accommodations Konoha had to offer. But when his Ni-chan told him that his mother used to live here a while ago before getting married to his father, he changed his mind. He wanted to know as much as he could about his family. He wanted to ask his Ni-chan about them but could not find the metal to do so. He was apprehensive that maybe if he found out, he would not like the outcome. Ashina sensed what the blonde was pensive about. He knew once he had mentioned Kushina, even if it was just an innuendo, the blonde would most likely inquire about their parents. All in due time, Naruto-kun. Ashina channeled his chakra to the front of the symbol. The seal consisted of several webs bound together by lattice-like arrays overlapped with each other. One of the arrays, Ashina knew, was bounded individually for traits specifically heredity. Wonders of Fuinjutsu. Ashina pondered. If Kushina and Minato were able to open it, imminently that meant he could too, of course. The spiral twisted mechanically and the gates swung open. A courtyard was visible entering the gates. Behind the courtyard was the compound itself. It was a traditional design. The front of the compound resembled the Uzumaki mask storage temple with the whirlpool donning the entrance in front of the staircase. The lower section of the compound was not visible, although Ashina knew it contained a dojo that Kushina and Minato clandestinely used for testing jutsu which were not for the generality of people. It also had a personal library and an established area for clan meetings and such. Not that Ashina had any use for that. For now, at least. Upstairs, bedchambers were available with a dedicated master room for the clan head himself. Everything was chalky and Areno's. Minato and Kushina had planned to move in permanently after little Naruto was born, but things happened. Ashina pondered sadly. He shook himself quickly of those thoughts and made seal-less Kage Bunshin to get started on cleaning. As soon as the clones appeared, "You can do the Kage Bunshin too, Ni-chan?" Naruto asked in his usual demeanor, better after the talk he had. Ashina chuckled. Of course. Most members of the clan know it. I told you about Uzumaki vitality and chakra. Being an Uzumaki has its perks, right? Before Naruto could ask more, yes, you can make them as many as I can too. But your chakra control isn't as developed as mine is. You'll have to learn to be careful. Otherwise, you'll get exhausted easily. You already have much bigger reserves than the rest of your class, but it's all for nothing if you can only do the Kage Bunshin and can't utilize all of it. Ashina said before he saw the sad pout on the blonde's face. He flicked his forehead. Ow. Ashina chuckled when he saw the blonde glaring at him. Cheer up. That's what I'm here for, aren't I? Have you ever wondered why you couldn't do the regular Bunshin? while everyone else in the class excelled at it. You don't have to make me feel bad, Ni-chan. I already know I suck at it, mumbled Naruto with a frown. Let me finish, Naruto-kun. The reason is because of your massive chakra reserves. It's because they're so gigantic, you have horrible chakra control. Plus you have the fox's chakra. That itself is a behemoth. Fixing that is going to be the first step in our training. We're gonna start training. Yes, we are. Let's go down to the dojo. I also want to talk to you about something important. The dojo was not an extensive one. It had enough training materials. Shuriken, kunai, a selection of practice katanas, practice dummies. Naruto was amazed and bewildered at the same time. He never knew that the Uzumaki clan existed in Konoha. He never realized that the symbol that his Ji-san told him to wear always, whether his PJs, his shirts, his jumpsuit, was in all actuality the symbol of the clan. His clan. The totally awesome and sealing Jutsu clan. Speaking of his Ji-san. Why didn't Gigi ever say anything? Ashina was watching Naruto with a keen eye. He knew now was the perfect occasion for the fox to instigate him. Naruto was quite honestly pissed at his Ji-san for having kept this information from him for so long. All the abuse he went through when he was little. All the neglect. Was it worth it? His hands were starting to convulse. Where was all this hatred coming from? There was just so much anger. Deep inside the recesses of Naruto's mindscape, behind a steel gate with a sealing mechanism, the depth of darkness revealed two blood-red slitted eyes which had an aura of malice surrounding them. It's happening. If we're going to do something, I suggest we do it now. Yeah, I can feel it. The jutsu should work, we tested it on the training field. But I'm not going to take the risk right now, with him being so vulnerable. Let him deal with the trauma first. You trust that he can resist it. He won't fail. I know, kid, but be mindful of the chakra. It's still potent. It won't harm us, but the people will still recognize it. Ashina looked over to Naruto to see how he was holding up. He did not look like he was in a good place. He was holding his head. His eyes were beginning to slit and his canines were starting to cuspidate. His head suddenly started throbbing intensely. Naruto always had an odd nightmare mechanism. His nightmares almost invariably depicted death of everyone close to him. Inside his dream, the precipice was peculiarly the same. A voice, which sounded infernal, vicious, and ravenous, told him to kill. Just kill everyone and everything. He never listened to it. He would always try to ignore it. But dreams never listened to him. He would stay awake the rest of the night hoping that the nightmares might go away. He was perceiving voices in his head telling him to go and slaughter everyone and everything. He was holding his head, the pain was becoming unbearable. Give in. No. Naruto's voice sounded feral. Ashina suddenly grabbed Naruto's arm, which made Naruto fall forward, but Ashina caught him. That seemed to work slightly as Naruto's eyes started to restore to their original cerulean blue, but they were still slitted. He still looked like he was not himself as he looked scared and confused. Snap out of it, Naruto-kun. Listen to my voice. Listen to your Ni-chan, okay? Ashina started stroking the blonde's shoulders to calm him down. That seemed to work as Naruto locked eyes with his Ni-chan with a perturbed look but was reciprocating now. Ni-chan. What happened? Okay. Come with me, Naruto-kun. Can you walk? I think so. It's just my head hurts really bad. Did I fall down or something? Ashina helped Naruto walk to the nearest support in the dojo and helped him lean against it. He then took a scroll from one of his leg pouches and unsealed a bottle of water, and held it to the blonde's mouth. Just drink a bit. It'll help. Once Naruto was finished, Ashina looked at him with a serious expression. Tell me everything, Naruto-kun. And I mean everything. Naruto gulped because he had never seen his Ni-chan with such a solemn expression before. It all came to mind what happened. It just came to my mind all of a sudden, Ni-chan. Why didn't Gigi ever say anything about the fox to me? Okay. Go on. A all of a sudden my head was pounding, it was like someone was banging my head against the wall. I just felt all this anger. There was just so much anger. And I kept hearing this voice inside my head. Naruto paused after this and stared at his Ni-chan with a nervous expression. The serious expression that the redhead had held, softened, upon seeing the state of his chibi. Hey, it's okay. Go on. Naruto gave a nervous smile to the redhead and his apprehensive expression changed into a grave one. I have nightmares sometimes, Ni-chan. There's always this scary voice that keeps telling me to kill everyone. Even though I don't want to. I still do it. It's like the voice is controlling me, making me do it. The blonde had tears in his eyes. Ashina was looking at the blonde with a woeful expression. I know how you feel, Naruto-kun. I know. Ashina did not say anything so the blonde continued after taking a moment to handle himself. I heard the same voice again. It said to give in. What does that mean, Ni-chan? And why am I hearing the voice from my nightmares? Gigi always said it didn't exist. Ashina sighed. He wanted to wait but, so what do you think, Kurama? It's happening sooner than we thought. But it's nothing to be alarmed about. Yeah sure. Well, probably. Ashina sighed. Kurama sort of felt he owned it to the kid to sort of explain it and justify himself. Kid, you know how I was back then. All I saw was hatred. I gave up on humanity itself. I know we have not talked about it because there was war everywhere, but if I knew about what the old man had planned back then. Kurama stopped when Ashina held up his hand. Don't sweat it, furball. We never could have known what old man Six Paths wanted. And we can't change the past, no matter how much we want to. The fox remained silent. Ashina then held up his fist for the biju. Kurama saw this and chuckled. He then bumped his fist with the redhead who just smiled back. We're cool, furball. Ashina sighed again, now on to more pressing concerns. He turned to look at his blonde counterpart. Naruto-kun. Said blonde looked at his Ni-chan with his apprehensive look. Ni-chan. Ashina sat next to the blonde. Listen, I have to tell you something but you have to promise me something, okay? The blonde nodded so Ashina continued. Just promise me to keep an open mind. Learn to control your temper. We're going to be going through chakra control exercises that will help with it. But I want you to try to work on it by yourself too, ya know. Naruto just looked at the redhead with a confused expression. Okay. These nightmares you have, it's the same voice every time, right? And a couple of times you might have ended up in a sewer-like tunnel. The blonde's expression was becoming more and more pale upon hearing of the place which had haunted him up to this day. Ashina continued. Naruto-kun, it's the Kyuubi. What? Ashina remained silent letting Naruto proceed with his approach to the subject. Naruto got up all of a sudden irate. Why? What does the stupid fox want with me? Doesn't it know how much pain I went through with the villagers? How much pain they me cause of it? Naruto was breathing hard from that outburst. Ashina looked at the blonde with a solemn expression. Naruto-kun, listen to me. The fox was jailed ever since you were born. I'm not saying the fox is innocent but look at it from the Kyuubi's perspective, his way of viewing it, ya know. Naruto said nothing so Ashina continued. Ever since the beginning of time, tailed beasts were used as weapons for the shinobi world. I already told you about that, right? Naruto nodded so Ashina smiled and continued. Well, the Kyuubi was first sealed by the Shodai Hokage inside of, believe it, an Uzumaki. She was the Shodai's wife. Uzumaki Mito, but you can call her Mito Ba-chan. The Shodai's wife was also. Exactly. She was a kunoichi who originated from Uzushiogakure. She was the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Naruto was listening to the redhead with a keen perspective so Ashina continued. She was exceptional at Fuinjutsu, Naruto-kun. Able to seal the entirety of the Kyuubi within herself. Even for an Uzumaki, she had an especially powerful and unique type of chakra. She was also able to sense negative emotions in people. Although that ability is due to Kurama. But Chibi doesn't need to know that. She was able to seal the Kyuubi. And within herself. Why would she do that, Ni-chan? Doesn't she know what being a Jinchuriki is like? The blonde stated sadly. Smack. Ow. What hit me? Chibi looked around but saw nothing other than his good old Ni-chan, who was looking at him with an amused expression. Why? Me, of course. Ashina said with an amused smile that made the blonde's eye twitch. The blonde was glaring at the redhead but said redhead was impassive. Mito Ba-chan was happy, Naruto-kun. Despite being a Jinchuriki. This statement seemed to shock the blonde. Ashina put his hand on the blonde's shoulder and continued, and if she could do it, then so can you. Okay. Naruto said nothing for a while, but his expression changed into one of determinism suddenly. I can and I will, Ni-chan. Believe it. The blonde pumped his fist for emphasis. That's the spirit, Naruto-kun. Now let's get started. The redhead stated with enthusiasm reminiscent of handsome green beasts. Start what, Ni-chan? The blonde asked innocently. My dear cute student, your training, of course. And you will refer to me as Ashina-sensei when we're training. Understood. Ashina stated with an unnerving tone at the end, which made the blonde pale a little. Hi. Ashina smirked. Good. Let's begin. Yugao was sitting in the Dango cafe, slightly depressed and confused at the same time. She sighed compunctiously and laid her head on the wooden table with a cute pout. Why did I have to embarrass myself? Flashback. The medic had just left after attending to the mysterious red-headed shinobi. Neko aka Azuki Yugao was inside and guarding the room. The only you could hear in the room was the light snoring coming from the bed. The redhead was on the bed and breathing peacefully, but the Anbu could also feel a strong presence from him. As she was a sensor like her sister figure Kurenai, she could not neglect such a potent source of chakra. Kami. He must have twice as much chakra as Hokage-sama. Yugao was one of the regular Anbu stationed to the Hokage himself recurrently. And a habitual guard at the Hokage residence. So she knew how much powerful the Sandaime himself was in terms of chakra. But this person in front of her, he was mammoth. Up to the point that it was colossal. More than the Hokage himself. The only other person who was close to this much chakra in a single embodiment was a cute little Gaki that she had grown to be so fond of. So this man saved Naruto-kun. Yugao thought that was quite fortuitous. Usually, people were always boorish towards the child she was so fond of. Some people even went as far as attacking the child when he was little. That was when Yugao had to arbitrate at first, as she pledged herself as an Anbu to always serve and protect irrespective of creed. So she was protection detail a couple of times for the child. That was before the incident at the orphanage. Fortuitously, Yugao was the one who found the blonde after he got kicked out. He was unconscious in an alley in a small hut after he got kicked out. When she saw the state of the boy, her heart shattered. The boy was so visibly malnourished, his bones were prominent. She took him home, gave him a bath, dressed him up. Naruto was unconscious the whole time due to the extent of his exhaustion. When she pulled him out of the bath, she held him to her chest to carry him, which made her broke down in tears yet again. The boy was so devoid of human contact that he clung to her and would not let go. When she tried to pull away, he started subsuming whimpers. Her heart softened, which was very unlike her. If you asked her colleagues in Anbu, they would tell you that she was as stiff as a rock, all work and no fun. It was so unusual for her, but she saw firsthand how a child was being targeted for something that was out of his control. Being the target of false propaganda. Someone so little, so innocent. He did not deserve it. Not even a bit of it. So she let him stay the night with her. The cute Gaki slept soundly after what seemed like his whole life so far. She notified the Hokage via one of her colleagues. The next day some civilians and the Hokage himself suffered Yugo's wrath. After the incident, Yugo always kept an eye on Naruto, in the end shadows. Always made sure he was provided for. Practically threatened the Hokage to provide Naruto a home which he planned to anyways, but Yugo was assertive and the Hokage knew better than to piss off an already pissed off woman. Stocked his supply of ramen from time to time. Applied some fluent seals on his apartment to fend off mobs. She wanted to adopt Naruto but the Hokage would not let her, saying it was dangerous for an AMV to raise a child. Which made sense. And told her to keep her distance until he was made a chunin, ultimately when Naruto was old enough because it would lead to him becoming too attached and also compromise her duty as an AMV. So Yugo relented after much hesitation. She also suspected that there was something that the Hokage was not telling her but shook it off. So it struck as quite the stupefaction that someone would save Naruto-kun, to her. The only handful of people which were good to the blonde that she knew of were, somehow Kakashi-senpai, Hokage-sama, Kurenai, Anko-chan and a cute lavender-haired girl who used to follow him around from what Yugo saw. They're so cute together are. While Yugo was gushing about pairing young gakis together, the redhead stirred in his sleep. Wrinkled his nose a bit, then started snoring again. Yugo giggled at the sight. Heavy sleeper, huh? She made her way over to the redhead. He looked so peaceful other than the occasional snoring, the shinobi was unmoving. The only slight progression was his chest moving indicating that he was breathing normally and of course, the snoring. The most noticeable thing on the redhead was his scars. They were quite prominent and visible. Yugo thought it made him look quite in her opinion. She always was a sucker for virile attributes. But then again, which woman isn't? She concluded to appease the butterflies in her stomach. Now Yugo was a woman of virtue and dignity. She took her duties earnestly. Even her childhood friend Hayate, who had a crush on her, still does, said that she was so driven, up to that it was deranged how much work she did. So for her to start a relationship with someone, she would do so with commitment and devoutness. That was probably the reason why she was still celibate. Even her sister figures Anko and Kurenai were like that. She started tracing her hands on the redhead's scars. She did not know what made her do that. Some of those scars looked quite familiar. The revelation quickly came to mind which shocked Yugo. Their kenjutsu slashes. Her hand involuntarily went to her abdominal region, next to her solar plexus. It was her worst scar. It made her feel very insecure about herself, so she hid it from everyone and never let anyone see it. Not even Kurenai or Anko. She quickly shook those feelings off and focused on the person in front of her. He must have trained himself into the ground. She used her fingers to trace a particular scar which made the redhead stir a bit. Her fingers must be cold. Yugo pulled her hand back and clenched her teeth nervously. Sorry, she said in a subdued voice. Once she was sure he was in dreamland, she went back to her, fondling. Is that what it was? She did not fathom that she was feeling up the shinobi's muscles now instead of comparing scars. Works out a lot too. I bet Anko-chan would have a field day with you. She was so preoccupied with what she was doing that she did not even notice the Hokage walk inside the room. Ahem. Yugo once again banged her head on the table and groaned, why? Still stuck on how you felt up the guy in front of our esteemed leader. Shut up. How many times do I have to explain it to you? I did not fondle the guy. I was just looking over his scars. Yugo whispered the last part at the end. The woman laughed rather boisterously. Keep telling yourself that, Yugo. Yugo groaned. What are you doing here, Anko? Sitting in of Yugo was Mitarashi Anko. Light brown pupil-less eyes. Spiky violet hair tied in a ponytail. Clad in her beige trench coat, wearing nothing but a mesh bodysuit underneath. Not that she would ever go beyond teasing. A miniskirt exhibiting her slender and robust thighs which were feminine in every way. Effeminate legs hidden by shin guards. A shinobi's perfect wet dream but deadly as a serpent when condign. Anko looked towards Yugo with her signature smirk, isn't it obvious? Figures. And where did the Chan go when you called my name? Anko pouted adorably, which Yugo would have swooned at but was not in the mood for, even a little bit. Why you accused me of such wanton acts? What did you expect? A cookie? Oh come on, Yugo. There's no shame in admitting that you snuck a feel on the guy. Pretty lucky bastard though. Getting Izuki Yugo to do something as vulgar as sneaking a feel, oh, and especially when the guy was unconscious. She emphasized on the vulgar part with her cheeky grin. Yugo blushed a deeper shade of red at what was implied. Off. Anko laughed and held up her hands in defeat. She gestured the waiter to bring 2 plates of dango that she loved. Okay, I'm sorry. You still haven't told me the whole story though. Spill. Yugo sighed. I already told you that I was guarding him. The man was gravely injured, Anko-chan. He had acute trauma in multiple places from what I could see. He should be bedridden for a few days, at least. That doesn't explain why you talked about a person of the opposite gender for more than 10 seconds. It's not that rare. And besides, the man saved Naruto-kun, Anko. Who? Whiskers. I thought you and the old man were the ones who saved the shrimp and took care of that silver-haired asshole. Anko emphasized by standing and slamming her hands on the table. Shish. Keep it down. Yugo gestured with her hands after the stares they got. She continued, that's not what happened. When we got there, Naruto-kun was safe. And the shinobi who saved him was unconscious. The Hokage ordered us to take him to the hospital. Oh, Yugo smirked. Time for a little payback. She leaned over the table close to Anko's face, which made Anko pull back with a nervous look. Why are you looking at me like that? It's just so cute. Yugo gushed even more so than usual, which seemed to annoy the hell out of Anko. I don't get what the hell you mean. Ah, and she doesn't even realize how much worried she was for little Naru-chan. Yugo faked swooned, which was working because Anko was getting really frustrated now. What? I was not. Who cares what happens to the Gaki? I don't. I sure as hell don't care. Anko shrugged inadvertently and seemingly, but looking closely, Yugo could see a tiny drop of sweat coming off of her brow. Gotcha. Yugo knew that Anko cared about the boy because he reminded her of herself in her harsh past. Even though she was slightly hoydenish in her inclinations towards certain things, Yugo knew underneath all that tough demeanor and semblance was a very insecure girl who secluded herself from the world after the events of her past. It was a tough shell to break, even for her, and even then there was some mitigation left. Not that Yugo could blame her. She was the one who found her after all. Yugo decided not to tease her and just drank her tea with a shit-eating grin. Anko wanted to change the subject, so. Ahem. She coughed a little before continuing. What did he look like anyways? Yugo sighed. Anko. Not this again. Anko waved her hands feigning innocence. No messing around. I'm serious. He did save the Gaki after all. She looked down at her lap with a slight red tint on her cheeks. Yugo smirked, finally coming around. Huh. Anko was about to retort, but Yugo cut her off by replying to her impending question. He was about 6 feet tall, has red hair. The same red as Kushina-senpai, oddly. Let's see. What else? She paused before replying. H had a lot of scars on his body from what I could see. Anko smirked. Ah, I know about your obsession with scars. That's a major turn on for you probably. Don't deny it. You were probably gushing down there when you saw them, weren't ya? Yugo blushed full red at what was implied. What the is wrong with you? And Anko burst out laughing. IJ just couldn't resist. Anko squeezed out whilst wiping stray tears from her eyes. Damn it, Anko. Yugo was getting pissed now, and Anko knew when to stop when it came to her surrogate sister and her hellish temper. Okay. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. At least for now, Anko said with a nervous grin. Yugo sighed. Fine. That's the best I can get from you anyways. So, how long do you think he'll be in the hospital? He's probably going to be in for a couple of days from what I could see. Why? I wanna get a good look at the guy. See who softened my sister's cold and gloomy heart. Anko said with an overly dramatic voice. Speaking of hospitals, Kurenai should have been released probably 2 or 3 days ago. Yugao interrupted with a small blush, avoiding any mention of the redhead anymore. Yeah, where is Nai-chan anyways? Kurenai was going through a pickle of her own. She did not know what to wear to her date. That's definitely a first, Kurenai inferred. Maybe something more traditional, Kurenai-sensei. Hinata said in her soft and introverted inflection. What do you think he'll go with, Hinata? Hinata squeaked. I wouldn't know, sensei. Kurenai sighed. She had been trying to get her out of her reservedness and make her more susceptible and confident before team placements. She thought by helping her pick out clothes for her date, they would bond a little and she would forget all that's happened the past few days. So far it was working in that regard, but her self-infliction and morale issues were far more abyssal than she had thought them to be. She definitely had her work cut out for her. Kurenai shook herself from those thoughts to the present and grinned at Hinata. Now, Hinata. You have to know a little bit at least. Don't you wanna go on a date like this with Uzumaki-kun someday? Hinata let out an eep at the mention of her ever so unrelenting crush. Kurenai, of course, knew because Hinata had told her all about it. At least it's healthy and she's not a fangirl. She frowned inwardly at the mention of fangirls. She hated them a lot. In her opinion, fangirls were the pinnacle of scum in the shinobi world. They were the reason why Kunoichi had such a bad name. Kurenai knew about the girl's insecurity and how much the blonde meant to her. How the blonde saved her from those bullies and how he gave her his scarf. It made her swoon every time she recalled the story, how she looked at the blonde as a source of strength. And besides, they look so cute together. Yep, Kurenai was as much a shipper as Yugao. Don't say such embarrassing things like that, sensei. Hinata said in a tiny whisper, far too flustered right now. Kami, the poor girl looks like she'll faint. Kurenai giggled in a half-amused, half-worried sentiment. Sorry, Hinata. Anyways, well, I've narrowed it down to 2. One was a black ruched tie shoulder bodycon, gifted to her by Anko for her birthday last year. Her choice reflecting upon the dress. It was extremely close-fitting and she knew it was going to drop his jaw if she wore that. But she was nervous in regards to it. She did not want to show off too much on the first date, if you could call it that. Second she opted to choose was traditional. It was a dark magenta yukata with red poppies stitched intricately at the bottom, which were reminiscent and brought out the color of her eyes. The stitching was exquisite. It was the perfect balance of recherche and elegancy. She bought it from the land of water once whilst on a mission, and was saving it for a special occasion. Now's as good as any, I guess. She paused before pondering, maybe I shouldn't have teased him too much. Is it really a date? I mean I kinda forced him into it. Kurenai bit her lip nervously. Suck it you up. I'm going to do this. Yeah. She started pacing around the room. Hinata was getting worried. How am I going to go